Today, I'm going to take you through a little exercise that I have been doing and really enjoying, and that is watercolor sketching. So it's a really simple practice. I think that mindset is actually much more important than technique here. You really have to approach it with confidence. I think this is one of the best ways to start to play around with and get used to watercolors because you cannot go back. So you have to be very confident and just own and suspend all judgment of all of the marks that you make. As you might already be able to tell, the subject of today's watercolor sketching sesh is safari animals. These are really near and dear to my heart as I spent most of my childhood in Africa, and there is just something about sketching the animals of the Serengeti that makes me really happy. I started watercolor sketching recently because I noticed how much different a piece was when I planned it out versus when I just went full in with the watercolors and kept the marks loose and more interpretive. For me, this captures more of like the essence and almost the life in the piece and is a lot more expressive than more of a sketched out planned piece. And I actually really enjoy that. And so I thought, hey, why don't I actually incorporate this into my work a little bit more? And that is what we are doing today. And now we are moving on to my favorite subject for watercolor sketching, zebras. This is just such a delicious combination for me of like amazing black and white pattern and graphics and lines, which I love. I just love a good line. And also being able to practice that absolute trust and release that is inherent in this watercolor sketching game. Very often when I start an animal, I do not like it for a while. I was really not into this zebra until I got midway through the body, and then I started to see her develop a little bit more, but it really is about just not thinking about what you're doing as a finished piece and knowing that the worst that can happen is you just paint another. For the zebras, I am doing something that is one of my favorite little sort of tricks of the trade in watercoloring, which is just playing up the variation in the shades of black. It goes a really long way for interest if you just vary the lightness and darkness a little bit and the shadows. That's kind of what watercolor is best at doing, and it just makes it so delightful for the eye to look at versus like a stark all black zebra. It's just a really different experience, and so that's something I do a lot throughout my pieces. the backstory on these little creatures and this whole watercolor sketching practice that I started is that I'm using it as the main technique for the backgrounds of all of the Mr. T illustrations, which is the picture book that I'm working on, A T-Rex in Paris. So this particular spread is about Mr. T giving bisous at the zoo, which are, like those little kisses that the French give on the cheek and many other cultures. And so the animals are all kind of giving each other kisses, and that first giraffe that I painted is going to be giving Mr. T a kiss. Each animal kind of has its own thing, its own point of interest, and with the elephants, since they're a sort of a big mass of form, the interest really comes in that kind of shading and color. So again, not just relying on one gray, but really mixing it up and adding some blues and adding some tans and letting the gradation happen just kind of adds this really cool life to these beautiful creatures. And while I was doing this, I was sort of channeling the idea of cave paintings, and keeping it really expressive. It almost feels like a dance of the paintbrush, and you keep going when you're dancing, and you don't think about the moves that you're going to do next. And yeah, sometimes maybe they come out a little awkward, depending on your rhythm, but you just keep going with the flow, and that's very much how this feels to me. And of course, when on safari, you always need the big cat. And so we've got a little pride of lions, just chilling. And the final creature that I am adding to the mix are Guinea Fowl. And I don't know if everyone knows of these birds, but they are my absolute favorite. They are so animated. They have these beautiful, vibrant blue heads, and I guess they kind of look like hens. But the best thing about them is just the way that they all walk in a linear formation, like across streets. You'll just be stopping for guinea fowl, and they'll all be just bopping across the street. And then I just go and I add the details. It's all one layer of paint, so nothing more. It's really quick. This whole thing took me about an hour. And then the details I just do in a mix of pencils, really. So I'll add expressions and, just sort of some shadows and some grounding elements. And that's about it. One handy dandy little trick with watercolor is that sometimes if it hasn't fully dried, you actually can lift the paint up off the page. So just add some water and dab it with a paper towel. A paper towel is one of your best friends when watercoloring, always. So I'm trying to sort of replicate this movement that I was talking about in the guinea fowl with their little feet. And small confession, I find cats' faces to be one of the hardest things to draw. I think I'm getting over it, but I didn't do cats for the longest time because they don't usually look super happy, and most of my creatures do look happy, and I just didn't know how to resolve that. But I think I kind of figured it out. And then as you can see, even though there are no mistakes in watercolor sketching, I do use my eraser from time to time. Finally, the baby elephant, who I think is my favorite from this watercolor sketching session. And voila, we have all of our little safari creatures that are going to be plopped into the Paris Zoo. So if you try any watercolor sketching of your own, I would love to see it. And until we meet again, TTFN.